Welcome to Financial Revelations. I am David Safransky, your host. I'm your host every week because, quite frankly, I don't trust anybody else to do this. And they just don't have my persona and presence, so it has to be me. So here I am coming to you from, unnaturally warm Avon, Ohio. Last week at this time, it was like minus 250 degrees. It seemed like nobody could go outside. I had to basically toss my dogs out the front door. And today it's 60 degrees. So, and it's also the last day of the trading year. So after today, the market year is over and good riddance. This has been a horrible year. It's the worst year in the market since 2008, and it feels every bit as bad as 2008. But there is some good news. I know the Fed has been very active in the market, and it has brought the bond market back to life and is allowing us to de-risk portfolios and put some money into bonds and get some good income. But that's not necessarily great for the stock market because it does drag money out. I think the first week of the year could be potentially a little bit rough, but I'm looking for better things. And I like at the end of the year to really talk about what's going to happen next year. And I thought this time we would give you some New Year's resolutions that I think would be a good thing for most people. Now, my theory on New Year's resolutions is I hate them. I don't like New Year's resolutions. I never make them. And the reason is if I need to make a change in my life, I'm not waiting till December 31st or January 1st. I'm either going to do it or I'm not going to do it. But a lot of people like that flip of the calendar. So let's roll with that, shall we? And the first New Year's resolution financially that I want you to start is I want you to take this opportunity, this new year, this new start, to really begin to budget. I want you to fix yours or start your budget if possible. And how do you do that? What are we doing when we start a budget? Well, first of all, we're going to figure out how much we make. And usually that's pretty easy because you can look at your pay stubs and you know how much you make. And I want you to know that while starting a budget or working a budget sounds complicated, it's not. It's actually pretty easy, but it's information packed because what it does is it gives us some insight into what you're doing financially. And, why do you have more month left over than you do paycheck? Or why do you have more paycheck left over than you do month? And so we want to find these things out. And to really get somebody's budget operating what I would consider to be optimally, you're going to be living on about 85% of what you make. So some people say, well, why shouldn't I spend everything? Why shouldn't I live off of 100 or 105% of what I make? Well, what happens is eventually there's going to be an emergency. Something's going to happen. A car's going to break. A window's going to break. A kid's arm is going to break. And you're going to need cash. And you could either go to the credit card and build up that balance, or you could come out of your emergency fund. And to have an emergency fund, you got to have a budget. At least these are the things that I think. And a budget is one of those foundational, necessary, and important, easy things to do to give us a lot of information on our finances. So I want you to start a budget. You figure out what you're making, and then you track your expenses for a month. That's all you got to do. Now, January does have 31 days, so you're going to get all your expenses. You're going to write them down, and you could drill down to the littlest thing that you buy. If you stop at a gas station, you get, 7 Diet Cokes and some beef jerky. Write it down. Not the best diet, but write it down. Excuse me. Let's see where you're spending money. And then we match those things up at the end of the month and say, okay, here's what we made, here's what we spent. Do we have a deficit or do we have a surplus? And we want to get you to the point where you have a surplus. So this is going to help you identify the unnecessary spending or where you're overspending. And then when we do that, we're going to start or bolster your emergency fund. We got to have an emergency fund. You must have an emergency fund. In fact, when people come to me and they say, well, I've got money to invest, and they have no emergency fund and they have credit card debt, I don't take their money. I will not take their money. I argued with somebody in my office once because I wouldn't take his money. He said, well, I'm going to find somebody that will take it. I said, I bet you will. It's just not going to be here. And I said, get your house in order and come back. I never saw him again. I hope he did well. I don't wish ill on anybody. So, it's not 100% probable that we're going to go into a recession in 2023. But I think it is about 70% possible that we will. The Fed is very active in the market. They're slowing things down. It's the largest increase in mortgage rates in the shortest period of time in history. So the housing market is grinding to a halt. And I think the Fed has they have 2 or 3 more rate hikes in them. Certainly January. So the Fed meeting in January is the last day and the first day of February. And then they kind of take off February and they go in March. So I think they're going to do January. They're going to do March, 25. January is 50 basis points. March is 25 basis points. And then maybe one more and stop in March. But they're going to grind this market to a halt. They want to see unemployment to 5% or thereabouts. They'd probably settle for 4.5. But it's got to get there. And that's going to mean a little bit of pain. You've got to have an emergency fund if something goes wrong. If you're out of a job for a little while, that's where you don't want to rely on credit then. People in 2008, you know what banks did with credit cards? They took them away. Yeah, they ended credit cards. A lot of people, they said, well, you got to pay off your debt and your credit card's over. Just couldn't. It's the one time in my life that I leased a car. And I went to turn it. I said, I'd like to lease another car. And GM said, well, we're not doing that anymore. We're not leasing cars. I'm like, what? But I was glad because I actually hated leasing a car. I like to say that smart people lease cars to dumb people. And I really didn't like leasing a car, so I've never done it again. Some people, it makes sense. Very few people. It's a very niche idea. So if you're going to lease a car in the new year, call me and I'll talk you out of it. The third financial resolution, New Year's resolution that I want you to make is I want you to give your credit card debt a bullet. Revolving credit is the worst kind of credit because you buy something 2 months ago, whether it's a dinner or whatever, you have it and then you pay for it over for the next 7 months. And that's just a bad idea. The number one way to use your credit cards, and I love credit cards. I have like 6 of them in my wallet. I have the card that I use for my business. I have the card that I use for my family. I have a card that I use to get into the American Airlines Admiral Club. I have a card that I use to get into the United Club. So I have these cards, but what I do is every month, without fail, I pay off the balance if there's one on there. And I don't use every card every month, but they have a zero balance. And that's what you need to do. I learned this from my wife when I first got married. I went to the mailbox. She said, what's that? I said, it's my credit card statement. I'm just going to pay the minimum. She laughed in my face and took it. We paid the balance off, and I've never run a balance again, mainly because I'm afraid of my wife. But this is the way you use credit cards. Excuse me. I have a little bit of a cough that I picked up about a month ago, and I'm taking some medicine for it, but it hasn't kicked in yet, so it's driving me crazy. And I'm sure everybody around me crazy, but I'm aware of it. So you got to manage credit card debt. Credit card debt is that, and credit card debt is one of the number one reasons people go into bankruptcy court, because it just gets out of hand and then something happens and they can't pay the bill. So manage your credit card debt. Manage it to zero. If you're running a balance on credit cards, alarm bells should be going off in your head, and you should be saying, wait a minute, I'm spending more than what I have. What's going on? Okay, and I know some people out that are listening are going to have some pretty big credit card bills. It was Christmas. You don't have to do it all in 1 month. Look, don't get defeated emotionally because I'm saying this. Get energized. Make it a goal to not use your credit card again until the balance is paid off, if you can. The other thing I want you to do, the number 4 New Year's resolution, is I want you to really think hard and long about major purchases this year, because I do believe that we're going into a recession, even if it's mild. Now, the Fed likes to talk about this soft landing, and for them, the soft landing is a mild to no recession, just a slowing down of the economy. But I got to be honest with you, the Fed has been around since 1913. They've never gotten this right once yet. And so I don't really know if this is going to be the time. Now, maybe they'll surprise me and they will do it just right. It is possible, not probable, but it is possible. But we have to be planning for a worst case scenario. That's what the emergency fund does. That's what the budget does. That's what paying off your credit card does. It helps you plan for worst case. And then if the best case happens, well, I mean, you're in gravy. So really, excuse me, think long and hard about these major purchases. Major purchases. If you're thinking about buying a vacation home on credit, now if you're paying cash and the market is down, you know, one of the couple of things that we learned in 2008 was, man, if you had cash, you could work some great deals. I had a buddy that picked up a Ferrari, my dream car. Thank you, Levon. Maybe one day for Christmas I'll get a red Ferrari with tan seats, convertible. I like my hair to blow in the wind, you know. He picked up a Ferrari because his buddy couldn't afford the payments. And his buddy just said, look, you have the car. Just take over the payments. So we got a half-price Ferrari. People were buying half-price houses. I don't think we're going into that, but cash is king in a recession. Cash is king. And I want you to be thinking, okay, when we plan finances, I tell people, you plan your finances like you're going to live forever and something bad is going to happen. You plan your soul like you're going to die tomorrow. So you got to think long term, and you got to think past the next purchase. You got to think about protection. You know, when we buy insurance, if you buy life insurance, you're buying protection for somebody, for something. You're protecting the financial obligation. When you have an emergency fund, you're buying protection. Yes, it's going to be in the bank, and yes, you're not going to earn a lot of money on it. But man, when you need it and it's there, you're going to be thankful. My fifth New Year's resolution is not financial at all, but in a way it is. I want you to exercise and quit smoking. Come on, man, get off the couch. You're going to feel a lot better. You don't have to go to the gym and be an Adonis and be in the Arnold Classic. Just take care of yourself. You will feel better. You will spend less on health care. And I noticed, I was in the store the other day and somebody bought a pack of cigarettes in front of me. Do you know how much a pack of cigarettes are today? $9 a pack. $9 a pack for cigarettes. I can't think of a lot of things that would be a bigger waste of money than a pack of cigarettes right now. Now, I don't want to make you feel guilty. I smoked. When I was in the Army, there was really nothing to do but smoke sometimes. They'd put you in a tank. They'd send you someplace and say, wait for us there. And you'd say, okay, Sergeant, how long until we get there? And so we smoked. That's what we did. And I thought it would be easy to quit. It was not easy to quit. I almost quit quitting, to be honest with you, but it's been a long time since I smoked and I was successful at it. And I'm so glad I did it. It really, I am glad. Exercise, just start slow. Walk. Just walk. Stretch out. Maybe join a gym. Hire a trainer. I got a name if you need one. I got a guy. The number 6 New Year's resolution that I want you to do is I want you to read a book you wouldn't normally read. Now, I know this is a weird resolution, but you know, when you read a book, you really borrow somebody else's brain for a while, and it gives you some insight that you wouldn't normally have. I'm reading a book right now called The Accidental Superpower, written in 2013. It is so interesting. It's like a foot thick. It's going to take me a long time, but I kind of whittle away at it. And I'm also going back to school starting in January, which I'm not too excited about, but I will be when I'm done. It'll take me about a year. And so I wanted to get my CFP for a long time. I'm just going to do it. I don't need it. I have CFPs accessible to us as a firm, but I'm going to do it. I like the knowledge. I want to learn. I want to do something that I wasn't doing before. And I want you guys to grow with me. So I want you to be here for a long time. And so read, exercise, think about major purchases, give your credit card debt a bullet. We got to do this. It will, you know how when you wake up in the middle of the night and you worry about money? It is not a fun thing to do. So if you get that credit card debt to zero and you use your credit cards responsibly, and you should use them all you want, just pay the balance off. Start or bolster that emergency fund and get a budget working. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be to the penny, but if you have that knowledge, it will make you powerful financially. You want to be in charge of your finances, not your finances in charge of you. This is Financial Revelations. I am David Safransky, a real American and the voice you could trust.